Namaste, welcome to our energy medicine program, part 2 of our first class, in which we introduce polarity therapy as our approach to energy medicine. The work that we're sharing here is based on the life's work of Dr. Randolph Stone, who evolved a system of energy healing, energy balancing, which he called polarity therapy. And polarity therapy is unique as a healing art for the clarity and the constancy and the focus of its intention to address the soul, the animating intelligence in the body. That polarity therapy views the body as a field of energy. It's not that the body has energy, it's the body is energy, and that energy is consciousness. And that consciousness is a projection of the soul, a projection of the organizing intelligence of the universe. And that our work as polarity therapists is to bring the body back into soul communion. That where there's tension or stress or blocked energy, our work is to understand the source of that, and then to release stagnant or blocked energy, and to restore the vibratory integrity of the field. And polarity therapy, again, is unique as a healing art for the intention to address the soul and to facilitate processes of soul communion. And we approach healing holistically. So we work with our hands as a living energy field to restore the integrity of the body and the energy fields of the body and every level of microcosm and macrocosm. But we work with the person, not just with the body. And we work with the person as an evolving spiritual being, and we work with the person holistically, because your health and well-being are deeply rooted in your lifestyle and in your everyday habits. So we work with dietary reform, we have cleansing and building diets. We work with the emotional side of things. We understand that your body is a screen for your consciousness, a screen for your emotions, and that states of bodily postures and our posture towards the world and our posture in different situations are states of tension and openness. And we work to release stress and tension, emotional armoring, and blocked energy to bring the body back into its natural state of soul communion. So polarity is unique for our working with the client as an evolving spiritual being, understanding that client, that their life is sacred, that each of us represents a moment in the unfolding of the creative potency of the universe, that each of us is the personification of a moment of the cosmos, and that your life is sacred, our life is sacred, each life is sacred, because we personify that moment of possibility and that moment of the unfolding of the creative potential of the cosmos, and that our work in this lifetime is to be present in our experience, be fully present in our bodily experience as life unfolds through us. And that polarity therapists facilitate, use what we call therapeutic presence, the healing power of the soul, to facilitate the returning home to being fully present in our lives, our body, and in this moment. So polarity is based on the life work of Dr. Randolph Stone, and he is, by many considered the father of energy medicine here in the West. And his work is represented in, we have his collected works, and then we also have a small book called Health Building, which I highly recommend. Oops, can you see it there? Health Building, which I highly recommend you get a copy of and read and enjoy. You get a good sense of Dr. Randolph Stone. And then if you're serious about polarity therapy, you should pick up his collected works and begin the process of studying his collected works. Now, I read them over and over and over again because you must evolve your consciousness to be able to receive the teaching. So what we're talking about is your own evolution and your own evolution towards your own realization of your own inherent divinity. And there's the work will accelerate your evolution and give you profound food for contemplation as you grow through these liberating realizations that are in this profound body of wisdom, which we call polarity energy balancing. So in polarity therapy, we work with the client as an evolving spiritual being. We work with them holistically, and we hold a sacred space. Now, one of the things you're going to experience that it's a great privilege to hold sacred space. It's a great privilege to work with someone as an evolving spiritual being. We began this morning by talking about the goddess Saraswati, essence of self. And the goddess Saraswati personifies the powers of the breath and the powers of the life force whose vehicle is a breath. In polarity therapy, we work with life force energy. And one of the foundations of working with life force energy and a constant focus of this work will be understanding to treat the life force as God. Treat the life force as God. No other God exists. The sage Nisargadatta, one of the most revered sages in the 20th century, tells us treat the life force as God. No other God exists. Now, I thought that was the most radical thought, and it's taken me decades to wrap my head around this. Treat the life force as God. No other God exists. That's quite a statement, isn't it? That any other God is a hallucination, and any concept of God other than life itself is God diminishes. Because life itself is the greatest statement. There is nothing quite as encompassing as the majesty and splendor and totality of life. And any concept we have of God is radically diminished compared to life. Any image personifying God, any thought or picture or explanation of God is an atom compared to the majesty and splendor of this creation, and compared to the ecstasy and vastness of our experience of life and consciousness. So again, I invite you to contemplate this wisdom of the sage Nisargadatta. Nisargadatta means Mr. Natural State. His natural state was in this realization that life itself is God. So what are we talking about here? One of the most important figures in biology today is Umberto Maturana, who in the 20th century transformed biology by articulating what the definitive quality of life is. Okay, so what is the definitive quality of life? That's the question we're asking here. What is the definitive quality of life? What is it that defines life? Umberto Maturana is the father of the Santiago theory of cognitions. Living systems are cognitive systems, and living as a process is a process of cognition. This statement is valid for all organisms with or without nervous systems. So life is a cognitive process. And Maturana goes on to give us the term autopoiesis, from the Greek auto meaning self and poiesis meaning creation. That life is self-creating and life forms are self-creating, that they have the ability to generate and regenerate, to produce and reproduce the conditions for maintaining themselves. That as we think of a life form as a field of energy, that as a system of energy, it's constantly maintaining the homeostasis that defines and maintains itself as a life force. And it's constantly generating and regenerating, producing and reproducing the conditions that maintain its homeostasis. That a life field is essentially a cybernetic mechanism. That a life field is essentially a cybernetic. That we're always talking about energy moving out from a nucleus to manifest a field and returning to its source in a process of self-correction. This recursiveness at the speed of light is our definition of consciousness. Autopoiesis, self-creation, is the term biologists use to articulate the definitive characteristic of life. So we're talking about life itself as being divine, and that the fundamental quality of life is that it is self-creating. That if we look at life as energy, every atom, every molecule, every cell, every organism as a field of energy is recreating itself, that every atom is a cybernetic mechanism, a feedback mechanism for maintaining the homeostasis of that organism. Every molecule, every cell is a feedback mechanism for recreating the homeostasis of that organism. That energy is always moving from the source out into the field and then returning to the source in a cybernetic and homeostatic process. That all of the thousands of complex interactions that sustain an atom or a molecule or a cell, tens of thousands. They say a cell is more complex than the city of Tokyo. That there are a myriad of processes that are dynamically interrelated in the complexity of a cell. That through the homeostasis of the feedback mechanism, the cybernetic mechanisms maintain the homeostasis. So what we're saying that the definitive characteristic of life is consciousness, is intelligence, that life has a concept of itself as an atom, a molecule, a cell, an organ, an organism, a process, and that in every moment it's maintaining a feedback mechanism, a cybernetic mechanism that supports the homeostasis of that atom, that molecule, that cell, that tissue, that process. So this is happening in every atom as an energy field. And that atom is nested into a molecule as an energy field, which is nested into cells as energy field, nested into tissues as energy fields, nested into organisms, nested into nature and the cosmos. That we live in a fabric of intelligence, that everything that exists is self-creating, and is nested within other larger self-creative homeostatic processes. And the ancient wisdom tells us this goes out to the farthest galactic reaches of the universe, that from quark to galaxies, we're living in a unitary body of consciousness, a unitary body where the word is used as holarchy, where every atom, every molecule, every cell is whole, and yet it's embedded in larger wholes. It's nested in larger wholes. And the same, how does this life breath breathe from the macrocosm down to the atom to bring life to this atom? It's because it's all breathing a universe, which means attuned to one coil. And that coil is the life breath of a living universe, that everything that moves is aligned with the universal life and is moved as an expression of this breath of life, this universal breath of life. And the mathematics of the breath of life is the golden ratio spiral, that everything that moves on an energetic level is moving in attunement with the logarithmic expression of the golden ratio and the mathematics of the golden ratio. The golden ratio is the mathematics of the life breath of a living universe. And so energy is always moving from the source into the field and moving at the speed of life. And this movement, the recursiveness of this cybernetic mechanism, is the definition of consciousness. So we're talking about life as a conscious process, that this feedback mechanism which defines and sustains the homeostasis, which is the field, this movement is the movement of energy through the field, defining and maintaining the field, defines the particular organism or the organism as a whole when we do it as energy. This recursive process is consciousness, that essentially we are working with consciousness. We are working with a field of consciousness. We're saying that the definitive characteristic of life is this, we just called it consciousness, but in the ancient wisdom, they're constantly using the term intelligence. And the reason they use intelligence is we're talking about the capacity to learn, that every atom is interacting with its environment and learning from that experience in a self-corrective homeostatic process. Do you hear that the atom is able to take in its experience of its environment and self-correct, that the atom is able to learn from its experience and integrate that learning into its homeostasis, and the molecule and the cell, that every organism is essentially intelligent in its interacting with its environment, in its self-correcting and its self-creation, in its generating and sustaining its processes. So that when we say that we're talking about a dynamic of consciousness, we're talking about a dynamic of intelligence. That in every moment you are out picturing your world, you're saying, you're doing, and then you're taking in the feedback that you're getting. Wow, that really worked, or oh my God, I blew it. And you're self-correcting in a process of learning. Again, you're trying to maintain your homeostasis, your balance, your success, your effectiveness, your health, your happiness. You're out picturing your world and you're interacting with your environment as an expression of your knowledge. And then you're taking in and hopefully self-correcting, learning from that experience. So we're saying that on every level of microcosm and macrocosm, we're talking about a process of intelligence. So the sages of the East, the sages of India call this organizing intelligence, this omnipresent intelligence, the self. That the same intelligence that you find in the atom or molecule or cell is the same intelligence that we find in the organism, the same cognizance, the same ability to see, to realize what's going on, and then to self-correct. It's essentially the same homeostatic process that's going on. And it's the same intelligence in the atom, nested in the molecule, nested in the homeostasis of the cell, nested in the homeostasis of the tissue, nested in the homeostasis of the biological life-sustaining processes, nested in the organism as it interacts with its environment. It is the same intelligence. So this is we define life as an intelligent process. And we define the definitive quality of life as this cognizance, as this ability to see, to realize, to know, to learn. Is we're saying our basic premise is to treat the life force as God. That this prana, the life force pra, means to go forth, and na comes from roots which mean breath, the outgoing, the yang. Breath is the life of everything that moves is this life force of a living universe with the power to create, to self-create, to self-correct, with the power to autopoiesis, with the quality of life as it's self-creating, it's generating, it's recreating the processes that sustain and expand itself. So we're saying, just as you are doing what you need to do to sustain, to generate, to create, to recreate, to maintain, that this is you're experiencing because you personify the cosmos, and you're having this human experience of the same intelligence that's happening in every atom, every cell, every solar system, every galaxy of the cosmos. That this creator, your mother, father, goddess herself, in her infinite power, gave herself totally and profoundly to this creation, and that you personify all of the powers of life, all of the forces, all of the gifts of life and consciousness, that whatever there is in this ocean of life, here is that you are not just a drop in the ocean of life, you are the ocean in the drop of life, that whatever powers there are in consciousness, whatever powers there are in life, you embody these powers, you embody these forces, these gifts, that whatever powers there lie in consciousness, you embody. You are not just a drop in the ocean, you're the ocean in the drop, that your mother, father, creator loved you so profoundly that she gave herself to this creation. That you are the self-sacrifice of the goddess. Creation is the self-sacrifice of the goddess. That she lives within you as you, that you are her power. You are the powers of nature. So we're contemplating this gift of life, this sacred, sacred life, and the powers that you've been given in the love of our mother, creator, who, yeah, wow. I think I better quit there. That's just so amazing. Better just think about that for a while. So the quality of the self, the quality of the self, the quality of this intelligence that we're talking about here. The quality of the self is lucidity, a cognizance, the ability to know, to realize, to see. And the ability to be present in your experience. And in the work we're doing, the key to the work is what we call therapeutic presence. That as a practitioner, you are deeply, deeply present in your hands and deeply, deeply present in the moment, in your experience of energy. So polarity is unique as a healing art for our intention to facilitate soul communion. And we define the soul as presence. And we facilitate soul communion holistically through lifestyle changes like doing energy exercises, which balance and attune the energy to facilitate soul communion. We facilitate soul communion through, again, dietary consultation, and we promote what is called a sattvic diet, a diet of whole food, living food, freshly prepared, that facilitates a higher level of energy and equilibrium and well-being and an enhanced experience of lucidity. Food and everything is understood in terms of this cycle of life, the cycle of creation, the cycle of polarity, of neutral, the source, radiance, positive, the fiery expression of the source, and negative. That Dr. Stone was an incredible wisdom to call this system polarity therapy, because energy always moves through a cycle of neutral, positive, negative. A source, yang, fiery, expanding breath, yin, watery, contracting breath. That always we're moving through a cycle of breathing, solar expansion with the rajas, the sun, radiance, creativity, and then the diaphragm descends, tamas, the lunar, the crystallization, the night. So morning, afternoon, sunset, evening, night, everything that moves is this cycle of breath, of a life breath, of a living universe, birth to death. In breath, radiance, rajas, out breath, tamas, yang, fire. The Tao is the mystery. The Tao is expressed in yang, the expanding, the rajasic, the solar, the inspiration, and the yin, the lunar, the negative, the contracting, the watery, the tamas. So this is the foundation of our working with energies is in these three principles of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is being and is embodied what we call the air principle and the transverse currents that move from the ultrasonic core out into the periphery and back to the core. And this we call the air principle or sattva guna. Sat is being. And again, an energy field is a cybernetic mechanism that in each moment, the field is filled with awareness. And the awareness becomes consciousness when it becomes conscious of something or anything. Okay, so the field is essentially, we live in an illimitable awareness from the cosmos to the quark. We live in an ocean of awareness. And as this awareness limits itself, that limitation where awareness is aware of an object we call consciousness, and the cybernetic mechanism that takes place through the dynamic of awareness we call consciousness. That awareness is the pure state of life itself, and consciousness is the dynamic application of life in the cybernetic and homeostatic process. Now, this involves three dimensions, which we call sattva, rajas, and tamas, which represent the flow of consciousness from the source out into the field and then returning to the source. Because again, we're talking about a movement at the speed of life that sustains and maintains life. We're talking about a universal life that flows from the cosmos to the quark. So an energy field is ruled, in a sense, by sattva guna, which is the cybernetic, the feedback mechanism maintaining the homeostasis. And this is embodied in us in the parasympathetic nervous system. So the totality of our body as an energy field is held in a field of awareness and is constantly feeding back in this homeostatic process the status of every dimension of every atom, molecule, cell, and process in the organism. Do you hear that? That everything that's happening in your body as a totality is being fed back through the central nervous, through something we call the nervous system, but it's total, and it's a play of consciousness. So we call this particular dynamic, we call this dynamic in energy, we call this the nervous system. And esoterically, we call it the air principle, and it sustains the transverse currents, which are always connecting the periphery of the field with the core. And this is embodied in the parasympathetic nervous system. The most amazing thing is when we touch another human being, it touches the heart of their energy. That's why touch is so profound, so sacred, so vulnerable. Is because when we touch a person, we touch them so deeply because these transverse currents go to the heart of their field to touch their very being in the sacred life. So we call this the air principle, and we talk about the transverse currents uniting the periphery and the core embodied in the parasympathetic nervous system. The fire principle, so again, we breathe. So first, there's an in-breath, and there's a still point of soul communion, of sattva guna, where the fields of our body come into communion with a deeper inner essence. And then as the inspiration, we take in the spiral of spiritus, the Latin word for breath is spiritus, respiration, and we come into attunement with the solar radiance, the positive energy in our field, the energy of the soul, the sun, and we entrain with the sun. And we entrain with the fire, the creative, the empowering energy of passion, the warmth, the excitement. Rajas, which describes the solar attunement, means to glow with excitement. And it's the excitement of being part of this creation, of expanding, of growing, of creating, of being in your power, of dancing all night, of the excitement of life flowing through you, the fire of life flowing through you. So you know when you're attuned to Rajas Guna because you're excited, you glow, you're happy, you're joyous, you're in your power, you're in the flow. And then energy crystallizes, the diaphragm descends and crystallizes into Tamas Guna, which is the crystallization of consciousness into form. We call this the water principle. So fire is sustained by the rajas currents, the spiraling currents, which radiate from the dantian below the navel to define the body from within to without. Air, and then the water principle, which is the crystallization of consciousness and form. It's the embodiment of our emotions that run us, and the levels of consciousness embodied in the chakras as they as they move our emotional life, and embodied in the form as an expression of water, of earth, the boundary, water, the fluid medium for life, fire, the personal power, creativity of life, air, the feedback mechanism, and ether, the overall space of the field, and it's being nested in fields above and nested in fields below. So in polarity therapy, we work with this fundamental dynamic of polarity of the breath of life, which at the speed of life unites every level of microcosm and macrocosm to sustain life. So we're saying that life is self-creating, that the definitive characteristic of life is that it is a self-creating process, and that life itself, if you're looking for a concept of God, if you're looking for God, God is as close as your very own living intelligence, breathing life into you in this moment, and this lucidity, which is learning and growing and maintaining a homeostasis in this very moment. Om Namah Shivaya. So in polarity therapy, the key is working with sattva guna. So we're going to be learning 3 energy balancing sessions. We're going to be learning a sattvic energy balancing session that focuses on therapeutic presence and facilitates an experience of being deeply present for another human being and deeply present in the contact in your hands, and the power of that presence to invoke the parasympathetic nervous system and create this deep, deep state of parasympathetic soul communion. And then we're going to be learning a rajasic energy balancing session to work with fire, to work with creativity, to work with personal power, to restore the vitality of the organ systems. And then we're going to be working with tamas guna. Tamas means to perish, and it's the force of inertia and resistance. And we're going to be working to release tamas guna from the core energy dynamics. We're going to be working with this very, very powerful and effective techniques that Dr. Stone has given us for opening the pelvis and the perineal diaphragm and restoring the integrity of the cerebral spinal system, restoring the openness and fluidity of the spine. You're only as young as your spine. You're only as healthy as your spine is fluid and mobile. So we're going to be learning to release the holding, the armoring, the stress and tension that's impacting the sacrum, mobilize, add fluidity and mobility to the range and quality of motion of the sacrum, of the spine, and ultimately the cranial sutures and totality of the core energy and the cerebral spinal system. So we're going to be learning these 3 separate energy balancing protocols over the next 6 weeks. Now, of course, the key to this is you're doing your homework, you're getting a partner or getting a client, and you're doing these sessions every week, because the only way that you can get the nourishment of this meal is to eat it. Looking at the menu, watching these videos will only get you so far. You really need to do the hands-on work, which we're going to be demonstrating in the next portion of this video. So today we're going to be learning the Sattvic energy balancing session. And we're working with these three principles. Sattva is the air principle that's neutral in polarity. It rules the step down from ether, from the life field into air, the nervous system. It rules the transverse currents, which define the energy field of the body from side to side. It's embodied in the parasympathetic nervous system, unites the core with the periphery of the core, moves from east to west on the surface of the body, and its quality is the superconscious mind. Its quality is being, the self, lucidity. Then we're going to be learning the Rajasic, the fire principle, positive, which radiates from the umbilical currents, embodied in the sympathetic nervous system, centrifugal, solar, hot, empowered on the right side of the body, masculine, vital, spirals from the umbilicus to sustain vitality, and it is embodied in the conscious mind, rajas, all the agendas of the conscious mind, all the excitement of the conscious mind. And the water principle, tamas guna, oops, we lost one there, is negative field, earth and water elements, rules the long currents which radiate from the chakras, the central nervous system. It's embodied on the left side, predominates in tamas guna, cold, lunar, centripetal, as opposed to centrifugal of the fire. It rules the organ functioning, the step down from the chakras, and it's ruled by the unconscious instinctual mind. So we're talking about sattva, superconscious, the self, the divinity, the all-pervasive awareness of life field. We're talking about rajas, the conscious mind, and we're talking about tamas, the instinctual, the unconscious mind. We're talking about three states of consciousness as we talk about these three principles. So the gunas, the qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas, we're talking about omniscience, conscious, unconscious, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, Ayurvedic dosa, vata, pitta, and kapha. It's important to understand that your body is a musical instrument.
The Latin word for breath is spiritus. It comes from the same roots as our word spiral. It is spiritus that plays the instrument of nature. All of nature is alive. All of nature is breathing. As we breathe, the tissue of our bodies is stretched by the act of breathing in a cycle of attunement to nature and the cosmos. On cellular and molecular levels, the tissues stretches to modulate its musical pitch. As we breathe in, there's a lengthening of the tissue to the keynote of resonance that cross-culturally and transhistorically the ancients called the air element. Thus, through attunement to the keynote air, life force stepped down from the subtle universal elements into embodiment. Then in quantum fashion, the inhalation ballooned the tissue into the radiant keynote of the creative potency of the solar fire element. Next in the cycle of breath is a still point where inner and outer forces come into balance as the earth element. Then, as the diaphragm descends, the tissue contracts into resonance with the lunar keynote of the water element. Nature is a fabric of ultrasonic resonance, attuned to the keynotes of earth, solidity, water, the fluid medium for life force, fire, the functioning of creative intelligence, air, the feedback process, which is the essence of intelligence, and ether, which modulates sacred space between the subtle universal elements of the cosmos and the material elements of nature. All of nature is vibrating in a life-giving state of praise, attuned to the voice of the goddess Saraswati, singing the holy word, singing the music of creation. This understanding of the relationship between the breath and attunement to the elemental keynotes of resonance is the key to understanding energy in the healing arts.
So I hope this has been useful to you as I've raved about this gift of life and invited you to understand that we're working with divinity itself when we work with life force, and invited you to realize how close you are to the God Goddess within in every moment. I hope these are liberating realizations rather than leaving you dazed and confused. So now we're going to take another break, and then I'm going to come back and demonstrate the energy balancing session, demonstrate the sattvic energy balancing session. So thank you very much for your focus and attention. Goddess bless. Om Namah Shivaya.